Shalom. Okay, so we're now at chapter 10 of Daniel. The last three chapters of the book, 10, 11, and 12, all occurred at the same day. So really, it should be one long chapter. If it was going to be divided into chapters, as it was, really chapter 11 should have two divisions, the first 20 verses, and then in the next 20 verses, and then the remainder going into the next chapter. But it is as it is. So we will try to do what we can to keep it in these blocks of verses more than the chapters as delineated in our current numbering system in the Tanach. Again, the numbering system in our current Tanakh is matching a non-rabbinical system. It's just trying to create a unified system to more easily answer heretics. Somebody quotes a verse to have an idea, which chapter they're talking about. But the original Torah system did not have these chapters as we have it. That's why sometimes you have a chapter like Daniel chapter 11, which doesn't make sense that it starts where it does and it ends where it does. Okay. All right. So we need a volunteer translator and volunteer commentary reader.
I would be willing to translate, Rabbi.
Okay, and you have an ArtScroll translation?
Yes, sir.
And
well, I have the Mesorah Kesuvim.
Yeah.
Yes,
good.
sir.
Mm-hmm. Which edition do you have? The blue edition?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, not like this. Okay. Okay, and do we have a volunteer commentary reader? If you have the ArtScroll blue edition.
Russell volunteers.
Yeah, but Teresa's got the book, so.
Okay, so it may take us a while to actually get a translation out of the Kirks tonight, but but at least we know they got the book somewhere in their house.
Shalom, everyone. I guess I missed 20 minutes of updates because I was late because the new link was not in my awareness. So whatever I missed, I guess I'll catch it out in the video later.
We haven't started.
Volunteered.
Yeah, everybody was updating something or other. So
Oh, yeah.
My cat is up.
Volunteered.
My cat is updating its bath right in front of me. So okay, no private parts when I'm teaching Torah. You understand me, mister? Okay. Trying to keep it modest here.
Yeah, got two cats. One's a good
for
cat
the Lord's honor. Okay. Oh, sorry. Meow, 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 meow. Okay, now hopefully, okay. Yeah.
I hope that was an accurate translation.
I may have said it in Cantonese. Cantonese. Okay.
Oh boy, that was good.
Yeah, sorry for the punishment. Okay. All right. So with Daniel chapter 10, we got Linda doing the English. We got one of the Kirks possibly doing the commentary, and I'll do the Hebrew. Bishna shalosh lechoresh malach haras davar nigla ledaniel asher nikra shemo bel teshatzar v'ames hadavar v'tzava gadol uvin es hadavar uvina lo b'mara v'yamim hahem ani Daniel hayisi misabel shlosha shavuim yamim lechem chamudos lo achalti uvasar v'yayin lo va'el pi V'soch lo sachti ad malos shlosha shavuim yamim. Okay, please translate the first three verses of chapter 10 in Daniel, Linda.
In the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a matter was revealed to Daniel, who was named Caesarea. The matter was true, but for a long time off, to understand the matter and to explain it to him through a vision. In those days, I, Daniel, had been mourning for 3 weeks of days. I ate no desirable bread, meat, or wine did not enter my mouth. And I did not anoint myself until the completion of 3 weeks of days.
Okay. So now the 3 weeks of mourning for the temple, as we know it today, was not really a custom back then. So let's look at the commentary to confirm exactly what's going on here. Okay, so look at this is on column 2 of chapter. That's page 113, the bottom paragraph on the right side. I had been mourning.
I have been mourning. Daniel was mourning because of Cyrus' renovation and his permission to build the temple, as told in Ezra 4:5, Rashi, and others. These
Revocation. Yeah. So he because of slander against the good guys. So therefore, Cyrus froze his permission to rebuild the temple. So now if you remember, Daniel previously was praying long and hard that the temple should be rebuilt, because it had already been 70 years since Jeremiah gave the prophecy. But then he was informed it's going to be by the angels that it's going to be it's still another 18 years to go. But then he saw that there was a king who was being kinder to the nation than he expected. He didn't expect Cyrus to suddenly say you could go rebuild the temple. So when that happened, he was probably saying, "Oh, God forgave Israel, so therefore it's not. We don't have to wait 18 years. The past 3 years has been enough, and we could start rebuilding the temple." But then there was the slander, and then the permission was frozen, and so then Daniel was worried that there was a new sin that was creating a delay in the rebuilding of the temple. Now, if there's a new sin, so the previous timeline could have been changed in more than one way, potentially. But usually now when Daniel was informed, he was told the previous prophecy was for 70 years. He wasn't told, and it was from the time of as we learned, but it could have been changed for whatever reason. It was going to be 70 years because a positive prophecy doesn't change. It's just a question of when it's counted from. Now, assuming it would not have been changed from when it was counting from, still, now there was a hope that it was going to be rebuilt. So now, from that perspective, the crushed hope was like extra kapara, extra atonement. So maybe the suffering of the people from not being able to rebuild the temple was already punishment enough, and therefore they were closer to rebuilding the temple. If they're being closer to rebuilding the temple, so then fasting can remove the evil decree. Now, previously we learned that Mashiach would undergo some suffering. We learned the Medrash and Medrash Rabbah. Mashiach would be willing to undergo some suffering and bring the redemption a little bit sooner. And Daniel was the Mashiach of his generation. But he was only the Mashiach of his generation if it wouldn't be delayed 18 years. Otherwise, Zerubbabel was the next in line. So this is Daniel's chance to bring Mashiach sooner. By doing what Mashiach would do, he would just do some sort of personal extra merit. In this case, it was fasting, and it would help bring the redemption sooner. We have to say there's some sort of a positive reason Daniel would do this, because it's not the Torah way to get into a depression and be overwhelmed and not be able to do good anymore because some bad news occurred. Right? Even during the horrors of last year's October 7th in Israel. So there was no rabbinical ban on weddings for a month. There was no public mourning in that sense. It was a horrible tragedy, but it didn't automatically stop people from doing other good deeds. So we cannot say Daniel was fasting and mourning as a sign of depression. So that's not in the range of options for us to assume that. Okay, let's continue in the Hebrew. Yom Esrim V'Arba'a L'Chodesh Harishon V'ani Hayisi Al Yad Hanahar Hagadol Hu Chidakel V'Esa Esenai V'Ira V'Ine Ish Echad Lavush Badim Umasnav Chagurim B'Chesem Ufaz Uviyaso Chasarshish Ufanav Kamar E Varak Ve'enav Klapide Eish Uzrosav Umargolosav Ke'en Nechoshes Kalal V'Kol Dvarav Kol Hamon. Okay, please translate verses 4 through 6.
Then on the 24th day of the first month, I was next to the great river, which is Hiddekel. I raised my eyes and saw, behold, one man clothed in linen, his loins girded with fine gold. His body was like Tarshish, his face like the appearance of lightning, his eyes like flaming torches, and his arms and legs like the color of burnished copper. The sound of his words loud as the sound of a multitude.
Okay, so this is some sort of supernatural being. Let's go to the verse 7. V'risi ani Daniel levadi es hamara v'anashim asher hayu imi lo ra'u es hamara aval charada gedola nafla alehem v'yiverchu v'heichave. Please translate verse 7.
I, Daniel, alone saw the vision. The people who were with me did not see the vision, but a great fear fell upon them, and they fled into hiding.
Okay, so there was a feeling of foreboding filled the area, but also this feeling of foreboding. So the question is, what was it? Was it a foreboding that permeated all humans would perceive it, or is it a foreboding that only elevated humans would see it? So the Gemara in Megillah and Sanhedrin have the same. This anecdote is repeated twice. So I got a Gemara Megillah here. This is on page 3a. So if you have an art scroll Megillah, this would be on 3a2. 3a2, the right-hand column. Who were these people who were with Daniel when he saw the vision? Rabbi Yirmiyah said, and some say it was Rabbi Chia bar Abba who said, they were Chagai, Zechariah, and Malachi, the contemporary prophets of Daniel's time and Ezra's time. Those are the last three of the 12 prophets. So now this is very fascinating. Inu hadife mine V'ihu adif minaihu. They, Chaggai, Zechariah, and Malachi, were superior to him, Daniel, and in another way, he was superior to them. So this is fascinating. So we're going to learn some secrets of the ways of the prophets. Inhu adife mineh, he was superior to them. De inhu navi'e v'ihu lo navi. No, sorry. The inhu navi v'ihu lo navi. So that was inhu adife mineh. They were superior to him, in that they were prophets, whereas he was not a prophet. What does that mean? We'll learn in a second. Ihu adif minahu, he was superior to them. Dihu chazav v'inhu lo chazu, in that he saw this vision and they did not see the vision. Okay, and the word chaza is similar to the word chose, right? And if you're familiar with the Hebrew and the translation of the Hebrew from earlier in Tanach, so Samuel was called the seer. So Jose is seer and Navi is prophet. So what does it mean he was not a prophet? But he was a greater seer of this vision. So if we look in the footnote 22, it's a citation of Rashi, Tosos Sarosh, both of them. In fact, Daniel was also a prophet, but unlike Chaggai, Zechariah, and Malachi, he was never sent with a prophetic message to the people. So the difference between a Chose and a Navi is that the Chose, seer, sees prophecy, but he has no obligation to go around the nation and spreading his prophecy. Remember, Daniel is separate from the other books of Tanakh, of the prophets, right? Why is Zechariah, Chaggai, and Malachi in the books of the prophets, and Daniel is not in this category of prophets? It has nothing to do with his prophetic level. It's established that he was, and here is a key evidence. He was a superior prophet to Chaggai, Zechariah, and Malachi from the perspective of prophecy. In English, we could use the word prophet, but really, it's in the category of seer, Chose, because he was staying in his one place, and he would send out books of holy books that he wrote with divine spirit. So that's what a Chose seer does, not what a Navi does. A Navi goes around and castigates the people. He warns them. And in fact, the books of the prophets, as we mentioned before, the books of the prophets were written differently from the way of the Torah and the writings. The way of the Torah and the writings, it was written down with Holy Spirit, and then it was distributed. The books of the prophets, the prophecies were orally given, and then later they were written down. So that only occurs in the category of Navi.
May I ask a question?
Of course.
My understanding is that each of them saw at their own spiritual level and calling. Is that what you're saying?
Well, they would, except in this case, it was such a high-level prophecy that Chaggai, Zechariah, and Malachi saw nothing; they only heard.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Well,
you're talking spiritual levels of calling and prophecy. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so in the English word prophet, Daniel was the greater prophet, but we're talking about actual categories. So in the Daniel's category was seer. Samuel was called a seer, but the term, as we see in the Gemara, the seer means really someone that everyone comes to. Daniel was a Navi because if you know about the way, if you're familiar with his book and see the Midrashim on him, he would travel throughout the land and spend spend weeks at a time in a different town, so that the people wouldn't have to travel all the way to him. He tried to make it easier on the impoverished people, so they could also hear the word of God and ask a Torah question if they had to. And so that was highly praised, even by King David. If you remember the verse from Psalms, that Samuel was compared to Moses and Aaron put together. And the Talmud says he was equal in merit to Moses and Aaron put together, because he went to each individual like Aaron did, and he gave the highest level of Torah authority like Moses did. In other words. Okay,
But
but
excuse
yes,
me.
question.
But they all agreed that it was Gabriel was the one that they saw.
Now, according to the commentary, though, let's see. Let's look at if you have the Gemara in Megillah. In the previous footnote, it says the following. So that's doesn't say it there. Where was it? Oh, okay, in the following footnote, this is footnote 23 on in the Gemara Megillah, page 382 in the Art Scroll. Yet a great fear fell upon them, and they fled into hiding. Rashi. The word "yet" implies that their fear was caused by the vision mentioned in the verse, even though they did not see it, and was not a result of some other factor. So it says a great fear fell upon them. It does not, though, say was it because of the loud voice, or was it simply a feeling of trepidation and foreboding? It doesn't say there. I thought I read in one of the commentaries while I was researching the chapter that it came from the foreboding. So
It
let me
was in
see.
7 on the in the blue book, in the matter.
Right, Daniel 10 verse 7.
Mm-hmm.
Says it says in the matter of being able to see an angel face to face, Daniel was greater than them, but being prophets, they could feel the presence
Yes, Malbim, right.
of
Yeah,
a supernatural being among
very
them.
good. You see, how about that? See what Linda did there? She had the group text, so she was able to answer faster than the rabbi. Pretty good,
Sorry,
Linda.
Rabbi, I didn't mean to.
No problem. Okay, so just to update you, my cat is now napping. Okay, so going back to the book. So this is pretty good. See, this is exactly why I would like us to read a book, group text together that you could research yourself. You're not just listening to stuff; you're seeing it yourself, and it's pretty good. When I was a little kid, it was very rare to find an English translation that on commentaries. It was only on the text or Rashi, but not on other commentaries. So, but now that we have a lot of English translations and various commentaries, it's good to teach a book with commentaries so people can research it themselves and read ahead if they wanted to. It's pretty good. You miss a class and you don't have YouTube handy, you could just pick up the book yourself and catch up on your own. So it's a nice thing.
Could I ask
Okay.
a question about the angel?
Yes. Go ahead.
He must have been, his body was blue, his arms and legs were copper, his face looked like lightning, his eyes, torches, and he sounded as loud as a multitude. It must have been sounding, when he spoke, it must have sounded like thunder or something. You know
Right now,
how loud a multitude is when they yell in a stadium?
right. Now, the article uses the word loud as a multitude in parentheses. However, the actual translation doesn't use that.
What does the actual translation in Hebrew say?
Well, that's why they put in parentheses. You would take out that word if you're looking for a literal translation. The
Okay,
sound of his words as the sound of a multitude,
okay,
which means multiple voices.
right. Yeah, as if somebody yelled "yay" or something. The whole stadium yelled "yay" at the same time.
Right. Now, like just imagine the difference between someone playing a mellow tune on a guitar and the entire room filled of musicians all going chaotically into some sort of jazz number. It just
Yeah,
so it's entirely different.
but
But
his body was blue and his arms and legs copper. He must have been a little frightening.
yes, and have you noticed this about Daniel? All of his prophecies have had some level of fear in his emotional state while he's having the prophecy. And again, this
Well,
prophecy is going to last through chapter 11 and into chapter 12.
I know, but see, Hashem's angels are they're magnificent and terrifying all at the same time.
Yeah, but also it's talking about the nature of Daniel's prophecies.
Ah,
His role was not to warn the people of imminent doom. His role was to set history in place before it occurred. So that, in other words, his prophecies strengthened the fact that people believe in the Bible more to believe the prophecies of the other prophets.
because Daniel said history. He said this is going to happen, and it
Uh-huh.
happened.
Exactly. And it was easier to tell with Daniel. He either gave distinctive numbers, precise numbers of years or days, or he gave a a impossible to interpret any other thing like it. Again, he's going to speak about the Greek Empire with Alexander, and then the empire dividing into four. It could only be the Greek Empire, in history that would, in world history. So it's and of course the Greeks, um, they would not. I mean, they were not the ruling empire. The ruling empire was now Persia. When he started his prophecies, the ruling empire was Babylon. Now it's Persia. At that point. So, in other words, he's certainly talking about the future, but to call it that there will be an empire after Persia that has a great leader and then becomes four parts afterwards. I mean, yeah, that's it's pretty poignant. Okay, so we read through verse 7. ואני נשארתי לבדי ואראה את המראה הגדולה הזאת, ולא נשאר בי כוח, והודי נהפך עלי למשחיס, ולא עצרתי כוח. Please translate verse 8.
So I remained alone. I saw this great vision. No strength remained in me. My robustness changed to pallor, and I could retain no strength.
So again, Daniel finds himself in a situation where he's being overwhelmed by the prophecy, but he's not being released. This is just the start of a prophecy that's going to last, over 50 verses. So that's, in a sense, I feel sorry for him, except for the fact that I'm too jealous of him to be sorry for him. But I'm just sorry he suffered. Let's put it that way.
I know it's a conundrum.
Yeah.
It's a state of conundrum.
But I mean, it's just amazing because the Talmud is linking to Chaggai, Zechariah, and Malachi could not even participate in this prophecy. It was so profound. Now, one of the aspects of a prophet receiving a vision that is physically demanding is that he is physically able to survive it. God says, choose life. So therefore, we see that Moses was given extra strength until he was 120 years old. He had his full vigor, and so Daniel was also he had to have a physical strength to bear this. But whether or not he had the physical strength to bear it before the prophecy occurred, he was going to have the physical strength to bear it. God was going to send the help to him that he needed. Okay, so that's where we're going to see this aspect of it now. But if not for the divine help, he would have been overwhelmed. It's similar to the medrash that discusses how the recently freed Hebrews were overwhelmed at Mount Sinai. They fainted every time they heard God's voice. They weren't prepared for prophecy. Daniel was prepared for prophecy, but this was like a superpowered flash drive downloading everything in milliseconds. It was just a major amount of spiritual power impacting him. So he's going to get special help from heaven, and it's going to say it explicitly in the verse 9 and 10. Veshma es kol devarav, sham'i es kol devarav, vani hayisi nirdam al panai artsa, binayad nag'a bi, vatani aini al berkai v'chapos yadai. Please translate verses 9 and 10.
I heard the sound of his words, and when I heard the sound of his words, I was in a deep sleep upon my face, with my face toward the ground. Behold, a hand touched me and moved me onto my knees and the palms of my hands.
So he just fell flat on his face, and
Semi-conscious,
yeah,
unconscious, deep
he
sleep.
was conscious of the prophecy. He apparently was barely conscious of himself even falling. He was overwhelmed. Then he was helped, and then at the first he can only be on all fours, kneeling, trying to regain his strength. Verse 11. Ve'omer elai Daniel ish chamudos havein b'advarim asher anochi dover elecha v'amod al amdecha ki ata shulachti elecha uv'dabro imi es hadavar hazeh amadti mar'id. Okay, please translate verse 10, verse 11.
He said to me, Daniel, greatly beloved man, understand the words that I speak to you and stand in your place, for I've been sent to you now. As he spoke to these words to me, I stood a tremble.
So then he stood upright. He was kind of like a giant suddenly just picked him up off of his knees and put him on his feet. He was physically responding in ways that he didn't expect when he was overwhelmed, in ways he didn't expect when he was suddenly given extra strength. Continuing in the Hebrew. Altira Daniel ki min hayom harishon asher nasata es libacha lahavin ulehis anos lifnei Elohecha nishma'u dvarecha vani vasi b'dvarecha. Please translate verse 12.
He said to me, do not fear, Daniel, for from the first day that you set your heart to understand and to fast before your God, your words have been heard, and I have come because of your words.
So in other words, this prophecy was an answer to Daniel. His fast was not necessarily going to speed up the redemption as promised to Jeremiah explicitly with a number of years. But it was this revelation about the future and about the fact that, for example, the Hebrews are going to have hundreds of years in the future of existence, is guaranteeing them that they're not being rejected to remain in exile. When somebody's down and they're disappointed again, so then they could think that they're now trapped in their current situation. But so this is reassuring them that no, they will be in the Holy Land with the temple, and these prophecies are going to have that in the implication. Okay, let's see, verse 12. Let's see, we did verse 12, right?
Yes.
Verse 13, V'sar malchus paras omed lenegdi esrim v'echad yom v'hine Michael achad hasarim harishonim u'ba la'azreini v'ani no sarti sham etzel malchei paras uvasi la'avinecha es asher yikra la'amacha b'acharis hayamim ki od chazon la'yamim. Please translate verses 13 and 14.
But the heavenly prince of the Persian kingdom stood opposed to me for 21 days, until Michael, one of the foremost heavenly princes, came to help me. For I had remained there alone beside the kings of Persia. I have come to make you understand what will befall your people in the end of days, for there is yet a vision for those days.
Okay, so let's look at the commentary. Let's look up at the concept of the heavenly princes. Commentary on verse 13. Okay, so Teresa,
Yes.
commentary verse 13.
The heavenly prince of the Persian kingdom, as in the angel appointed as caretaker of the affairs of Persia.
So every country has its own angel that is colloquially the concept of guardian angel, but it's the defense attorney in heaven whenever there is one nation that wants to destroy another nation, conquer another nation, that has a defense attorney that speaks up for it. So this is a fascinating concept and insight about the way God runs heaven, that he tries to prevent war before it even occurs by having a emissary representing the country as a defense attorney to defend it against accusations why it should be conquered or otherwise suffer an evil fate. Just another sign that God is the merciful Father of every nation.
Yeah.
So the guardian angel of Israel is Michael.
Is there a source somewhere that names more of these nations, or if we were,
How do you mean?
if we were looking up to see what nations like Egypt or Greece or Babylonia or
Right, they all have a guardian angel, but the question is the name shared with us? The guardian angel of Edom, the name is shared, but it's
it's not a good guy.
He's
but
not a good guy.
but it's not so important because it's about what their role is. Since we have prophecies that even the Edomites will eventually make peace and not be a part of an angel itself said, what in effect, what's in a name. The angels don't really use their monikers to that effect,
Is this
like humans do.
is
But
it based upon on celestial coordinates?
well, it's about just the task at hand until Mashiach time. So then nations have this system. After Mashiach comes, so then there's a network. The individualism is reduced among the angels. So it's we're really describing about what's happened until now, because we're in so many indications of the final redemption is occurring, that it's very possible this year could be a Mashiach time. And in the next few years we could have Mashiach. So therefore, we're looking at the history of how angels interacted amongst themselves and with Daniel. But I mean, it's interesting, but that would be a separate study in and of itself. But it's kind of tangential. Just to me, I mean, the incredible thing is that how God is trying to represent a nation he knows will have many evil people, but there perhaps will be a righteous family here or there, an innocent child here or there, or at least a nice pet here or there. so,
So, so
so he
the
puts a
so
defense attorney to save that cute pet.
the
So I mean, it's really sweet of God, and I think that's the major lesson we learn from this.
yeah. So the one for Edom is it's for a region or for all Edom, not just for one country, correct? Could cover
Right. So Edom is split into many nations. We see the 10 horns. So all the 10 nations are defended by the same angel. So now these angels are called princes. In we might call them archangels. So they're special angels, and they all have great power. But the angel Gabriel, and he's not in charge of a country, so to speak. He implements God's will to do things in the world. As we mentioned, he was the angel who overturned the evil cities of Sodom and Gomorrah.
right.
Okay, all right, let's continue. Okay, well, just in the commentary, a couple of paragraphs down, if you could read one of the foremost heavenly princes, could you read that paragraph, at least part of it?
One of the foremost heavenly principles, as in one of the most intimate of the angels, Rashi. In the heavenly tribunal, Michael is Prince of Israel, as seen in verse 21. Michael, your heavenly prince. Rambam in Leviticus 18:28, however, differentiates between Michael and the other angels cast in the position of heavenly princes. Whereas the other angelic princes actually have
Hegemony.
a hegemony over their charges, Israel's prince is different because Hashem's portion is his people, Deuteronomy 32:9. Unlike the other nations who are under the guidance and rule of their heavenly prince. This is what Moshe means when he acknowledged the Jews. Take heed unto yourselves, and lest you raise your eyes to the heaven and you see the entire legion of heaven, which Hashem your God has apportioned to all the peoples under the entire heaven. But Hashem has taken you, Deuteronomy 4:15 through 20. Therefore, Michael's role is only that of an advocate for his people, which role he filled perfectly, as seen in this verse. For
So now the reason why other angels take more control of their nations is because there's not enough innocent people in the nation for them to say, okay, just give them a chance and they'll choose something good. Given a chance, they may not choose something good. So therefore, the angel has to kind of direct things in a certain manner. You understand? For example, when Katrina, the Hurricane Katrina, destroyed New Orleans. So that may have been with the approval of the guardian angel of America. You understand?
Mhm.
He was saying, well, I guess if you're going to have to punish the nation, it's better does you do it in a city that permits certain acts of immorality that New Orleans was doing, and so and then spare the other cities at least, you know. And amazingly, most of the people, of course, survived the destruction of the New Orleans. So even in the place of destruction, we still see God's mercy. God is wonderful. All right, so this is fascinating stuff, but trying to keep the narrative of the verses in our mind. Again, we're talking about 3 chapters that all should be really one long chapter, over 80 verses long. So therefore, let's try to keep it together. Hopefully we could at least start chapter 11 today, and then we could continue next time. Depends if we're going at this pace. I don't know if we're going to finish chapter 10 tonight. But all right, so we got in a bit deeper than we expected. So anyway, that's a pretty cool Gemara in talking about the comparison between Daniel and the other prophets of his generation. Okay, so let's continue in the verses. Continuing in verse 15 in the Hebrew. Uvadabro imi kadvarim ha'ela nasati fanai artsa v'ne'elamti b'nei kidemus b'nei adam nogea asvasai v'eftach pi v'adabra v'omra el ha'omed l'negdi adoni b'mara nehefechu tzirai alai v'lo atzarti koach. V'hech yuchal eved adoni zeh l'daber im adoni zeh v'ani me'ata lo ya'amad bi koach uneshama no nishara bi v'yosef v'yiga bi k'mar'ei adam v'chazkini v'yomer al tira ish chamudos shalom lach chazak v'chazak v'chadabro imi hitzchazakti v'omra yidaber adoni ki chizaktani. Please translate through verse 19.
As he spoke these words to me, I set my face toward the ground and was dumbfounded. Then behold, one with the likeness of a human being touched my lips. I opened my mouth and spoke, and I said to the one standing opposite me, My Lord, during the vision My joints shuddered, and I could retain no strength. How can this servant of my Lord speak with this Lord of mine? From now on, no strength will remain in me, and there is no breath in me. And he, the likeness of a human being, touched me again and strengthened me. He said, "Fear not, greatly beloved man. Peace to you. Grow stronger and stronger." As he spoke to me, I strengthened myself, and I said, "Speak, my Lord, for you have strengthened me."
Yes. So, and we see here the lowercase l for my Lord, as in the Old English, Knights of the Realm sort of speak.
Mhm.
So now it's amazing. So now this is like the third time Daniel's getting physical assistance to be stronger, so he can bear the weight of the prophecy. And we see it didn't change him. He didn't like use up merit to get this help. Before and now, he's also called Ish Hamudos, greatly beloved man. So the phrase Ish Hamudos, greatly beloved man, is what inspired me to look up the that medrash we discussed before about according to some that whether Daniel could have been slain by Haman, in the book of Esther. We concluded, based on my interpretation of the Gemara, what you saw in the Gemara, that it's unlikely Daniel actually was killed by Haman. Maybe you could say he lost a political post, and that was like he was okay. Just a moment, please. So him losing his political post, so he can no longer help Mordechai and Esther, he's out of the picture. So I think that's the most you could say Haman had the ability to affect Ish Hamudos. Someone who's Ish Hamudos is not someone that got abandoned. Just as he survived the lions, then surely he would survive um, Haman's animosity. And remember, he did have the leftover blessing from the previous king to not that it had to be repaid at some point, and the town made a point about that as well. So that the prayers of of a of a non-holy person can be also important as well. The blessings. Okay. All right. Let's continue here. Let's see what the angel is going to tell him now. So this is really the start of the prophecy. As you notice, we're now in verse 20, right? The chapter ends at the end of verse 21, but the conversation is just starting. So it's not logical for the chapter really to end here. So therefore, we see this chapter end is certainly not part of the prophecy. It's just what they had to do to keep up with with answering the heretics. Remember, in the old days of answering heretics, the person who answered the heretic, their life could have been in danger. So they had to easily answer it and find the misquote and explain it. So that came first. Number as far as numbering goes, for the practical reason of self-preservation, came first before the idea of just doing it at the most literary optimum place to put the chapter stuff. All right, so we're gonna start chapter 11 now, but pause in the middle of chapter 11. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, starting in verse 20, chapter 10, and continuing into chapter 11. Ve'omer hayadata lama basi elacha vata ashuv lelachem im sar paras bani yotzi v'hine sar yavan ba aval agid lecha es harashum bichasav emes ve'ein echad mischazek imi al ela ki im michal sarchem v'ani b'shnas achas l'dayavish hamadi amdi l'machazik l'maoz lo. Okay, please translate verses 20, 21, and verse 1 as well.
He said, "Do you know why I came to you? Now I will return to do battle with the heavenly prince of Persia, then I will depart. But behold, the heavenly prince of Greece approaches. However, I will tell you what is inscribed in truthful writing. No one reinforces me against these except your heavenly prince Michael. And I, in the first year of Darius the Mede, stood up as a support and stronghold for him."
Right. So you see that there's no reason for the verse, and I, in the first year of Darius the Mede, stood up as a support and stronghold for him. There's no reason for that to stop there, except if it was put there by someone who thinks, oh, maybe Daniel's saying that. They're not even reading the chapter. They just put it's. I mean, who they hired to make these chapter numbers, Yeah, So, but okay, so if you're gonna start a chapter somewhere, it should be by someone who's actually following the narrative. All right. Okay, let's continue with verse 2. Vata emes agid lach hine od shlosha malachim omdim lefaras v'ravi yashir osher gadol mikol chezkaso v'ashro yair hakol es malchus yavan. Es malchus yavan. Okay, please translate verse 2.
Now I will tell you the truth. Behold, 3 more kings will arise for Persia. The fourth will acquire the greatest wealth of them all. And when he grows strong with his riches, he will arouse all of his kingdom against the kingdom of Greece.
Okay, just to remind you of the in the back of the book, the annex area, the appendix area. So it tells you the list of kings. So on appendix page 3, Babylonian exile. If we're in Cyrus, it just says Achashverosh and Darius the Persian. That's 2. So you have to go to appendix page 5, chronology of the period. Then it explains after Cyrus died, Cambyses reigned, but he just reigned for half a year. Then Achashverosh, then Darius the Persian. Okay, so that's 3 with Cambyses. It's three kings after Cyrus the Great. Okay, so while we're at the chart, let's just look again. So this is in the 3rd year, which is the final year of Cyrus. That was in the year from creation, 3393, the year BCE, 367. Okay. And then Darius succeeded Ahasuerus in the year 353. That's 3407. So we're talking about just 14 years later is when the 3rd king of Persia will come. So after him is when Greece arises. Okay, we translated through verse 3. Yes, we're about to start 3. Okay. Vavan Melech Gibor Umashal Mimshal Rav Asa Kirtzono Amdo Tishaver Malchuso V'Sechatz La'arba Ruchus HaShemayim Ulachariso Mashlo Asher Mashal Ki Tina Theish Malchuso V'Lacherim Milvad Ela. Okay, please translate verses 3 and 4 in chapter 11 of Daniel.
A mighty king will then arise. He will rule with great domination, and he will do as he pleases. But after he has arisen, his kingdom will be broken and will be divided into the 4 directions of the heaven, but not to his posterity. Nor will it be like his dominion within which he ruled, for his kingdom will be uprooted, and for others besides these.
So this is the only person possible to interpret this in world history is Alexander the Great, and Daniel called it first, but he was just writing down what the angel told him. So maybe we could, maybe it makes sense to take Daniel at his word that the angel told him this. But it's really cool because we see this is hundreds of years in the future, and Daniel's calling it. It's really really a vindication. You know what I'm saying? And of course, conspiracy theorists say, "Oh, Daniel must have been written after the Greek Empire." So every other book in the Bible was written thousands of years ago, but because they want to get rid of having to listen to the ethics and morals of the Torah, so therefore they try to undermine stuff. But Daniel was assuredly in his time, and if you're going to make a story of a hero, you don't mention all their flaws, right? As far as that point in history, in world history, every time they created a hero in a fiction, right, they would always make him a superhero. He wouldn't have so many flaws. But here in this chapter, Daniel's had to be strengthened 3 times just to continue the conversation. So that's pretty humble, and when you find that level of humility, you're probably finding a good deal of truth as well. So, but here we know it's proof. It's one of the proofs, of course, that the Bible is real. But again, the Bible ended with the prophecies of Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. After that, after the Tanach was closed, remember Deuteronomy 17. The rabbinical judges and the priests have the ability to decide all cases of doubts. So when the sages closed the Tanakh, it was closed, and probably there's going to be a book written by Eliyahu Navi or something when Mashiach comes. But until that happens, Tanakh remains closed. But we're still blessed that we could learn it, and since we're approaching the time when God is going to, we're told God will restore the age of prophecy to us. So therefore, it's a very appropriate time for us to try to learn every word in Tanakh, every word of prophecy God ever gave us, to show God that we're eager to hear His word again. If we look up the history of every word God spoke to the people, so we're showing God that His word is of great value to us and precious to us. So the study of Tanakh increases the hastening of the time of prophecy returning to the world, because we're showing we desire God's word, not like those generations where people ignored God's word. So what's the point of giving a prophecy if it'll only destroy people, right? God only sends a prophecy to save people. And if it's impossible to save them, so at that point, he explains why they're being destroyed, because they violated this or that, so that the next generation will learn their lesson and not repeat the same sin, to save the next generations from having that suffering in the future. And that's all from God's great mercy. It's really amazing. Okay, so really, a more natural break would be after verse 19 or 20. After verse 20. But I think, because we're at the point where, we're talking about somebody, Alexander the Great, who's like a clear like bullet point in history. Everybody knows Alexander the Great. So I think this is a good place for us to pause, maybe for tonight, just to open the floor to any Q&A questions. Does anyone have any questions? Otherwise, we'll pause here. Any questions for tonight? Okay, Russell. Okay, remember, if you're asking questions and your mic is muted, please open your microphone. But otherwise, Russell, so we learned chapter 10 and then chapter 11 through verse 4. Sounds good?
Yes, sir.
And now, does anyone have any commentaries that you wanted us to quote? Any other follow-up questions you wanted to ask? Now's a good time before we stop the recording. All right. Well, thanks for learning with me. Looking
Very
forward
good.
to the next time.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi
Thank you.
Friedlander.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.